I'm sorry, guys. My cat decided to pause the video, so she stopped it. And so this is going to be part two of the Protestant Reformation notes. Okay, so this is part two. I just finished with Sola Fide, and I'm moving on to Sola Gratia, which is by grace alone. The Catholic Church at this time was exclusively like commanding people, like, you can only be saved through like your works. Like, you have to work. You have to continuously be striving for God to save you. You have to continuously be doing stuff for God to save you. And Martin Luther is saying it doesn't matter what you do, it will never be enough. The only thing that saves you is God's grace, and you've been given that, God's grace. So that is sola gratia. And these are three really revolutionary ideas, especially when you consider that the Catholic Church has been in charge of this whole shindig for a really long time. And these three things are really contradicting Catholic teaching. So the question is, how is everybody going to respond now? After he posts these theses, after he puts out these radical ideas, how does everybody react? The Pope, all right. So I made 4 bullets here for the 4 different parties that are reacting. So that's the Pope is number 1. Number 2 is Charles. I'm sorry, 4. Did I say 4 or 5? I meant 4. 2 is Charles V. Okay. 3, German peasants. And 4 German princes. Remember, all this is happening, at first at least, in Germany, because that's where Martin Luther is from. So the Pope, absolutely, what I wrote is Pope, and then I wrote an arrow, and I said refused change. The Pope was like, don't really care what you think, how we do it is how we do it, and that's all I'm really going to say about it. The Pope was not willing to meet with Martin Luther and negotiate any of this. He just refused change. Charles V, that is our second bullet here, Charles V. And I put a V, that's the Roman numeral for 5. Charles V is the Holy Roman Emperor at this time. Some trivia that you guys know, the first Holy Roman Emperor was Charlemagne. Okay, so fast forward a couple hundred years, and the Holy Roman Emperor is Charles V. And obviously, he is given his title by the Pope, so he is Catholic. And what he's going to say is, Martin Luther is an outlaw. We outlaw his teachings, we outlaw him. I don't want to see anybody practicing this. So what I wrote beside Charles V, and you can get all of this from your reading, by the way, from now on. The sola part up here was the part that's not in the reading, but everything else is in there for you. Charles V outlawed all of Martin Luther's teachings. Next is going to be the German peasants. Now, these are the people that were once controlled by all these church practices that Martin Luther doesn't like. So this is a really big deal for them. And what they're going to do is they're going to try to seek change. So what I wrote next to German peasants here is sought change, or you can write seek change, looking for change. These ideas sound really good to them, right? Because first off, they get to have their own relationship with God, which they've never had before. Second, they don't have to do whatever people tell them to do anymore. Like, they only have to deal directly with God. They only have to know the scripture, which people are now, by the masses, learning how to read and are getting access to books. They can read the scripture and know what to do on their own. Like, they don't need anybody interceding. And when I say intercede, it's this idea that somebody has to pray, like, for you to God. They don't need that anymore. They can do it themselves. And then the German princes. That's your 4th point here. The German princes, many of them, most of them, are going to kill these people that are rebelling against the church. So German princes, number 1, killed rebels, and number 2, mostly, for the most part, remained loyal to the Pope. So Germany, as you can see, was not an awesome place for Martin Luther right now. So he actually is going to end up fleeing, by the way. He's going to hide out, all right, in exile, and he's going to translate the Bible, which has previously only been written in Latin, by the way. He's going to translate the Bible into German so that all the German people can read it. And this is this huge, revolutionary, incredibly important thing. All right. In 1524, we're going to have a peasants' revolt. And this is just to show you kind of an example of how Martin Luther inspired the everyday serf, the everyday person. So number one, two main points here and then two subpoints. All right, the first main point, they demand an end to serfdom. You guys know what serfdom is. And serfdom was still going on in these German kingdoms outside of Italy. Like y'all know in the Renaissance, Italy, that's not as much of a thing. Like there aren't really serfs anymore. There are merchants, there's a middle class, that's where people are thriving. But some of these kingdoms in Germany, they're still going to have serfs. So number one, they demand an end to serfdom. And the revolt itself, number two, is based right here on Luther's ideas, okay? Based on Luther's ideas. And they approached their leaders with this, and number one, it was not granted. So what they wanted, they were like the princes, the lords, whatever, they were like, no, it's not going to happen. And therefore, they, second subpoint here, began their revolt. Okay? So Martin Luther is also going to inspire a lot of fighting that I don't think he originally ever intended to start. Actually, I know he definitely did not intend for this, but you have this peasants' revolt in 1524, and then when you move on to the next idea, why did Germany go to war? Catholics and Protestants are going to begin to actually physically fight each other. They're going to be having battles with each other, Catholics versus Protestants. So one point here, Catholics and Protestants begin to fight. So the Reformation is not just a spiritual revolution, it's actually like a revolution where people are fighting. And the Pope looks around, and the princes look around, and everybody is like, whoa, we can't do this right now. This is not good. This is bad. We can't live this way. So they negotiate what we call the Peace of Augsburg. And the Peace of Augsburg is simply this. Right here, I wrote, it allowed each prince the right to choose whatever religion they'd like for their kingdom. So if they wanted their kingdom to be Protestant, cool. If they wanted their kingdom to be Catholic, that was cool too. Open to both, pretty much. And again, a revolutionary decision because it's validating Protestantism, the religion that you and I, many of us, practice some form of today. Is okay. It's accepted. So that is all. My screen is showing that it's frozen. My face may still be moving in this video. I'm not totally sure. But I wanted to let you guys know that this analysis at the bottom, how did the Reformation help to spread democratic ideas? All I want you to do is just write a sentence or two explaining why you think the Reformation led to more democratic ideas within the church. So this doesn't have to be like an essay or anything like that. You're just going to write a couple sentences, okay? So without further ado, you can go ahead and get started, and I hope you guys have a great day.